In this video I'm going to show you how I painted this waterfall sketch. The technique I'm going to use can be applied to any kind of moving water. I start with wetting the paper selectively with a brush, lightly touching the paper and making sure that I leave some dry gaps. And then I load my brush with some bluish water, in this instance blue-grey, and then just drop it into the wet pieces. My painting is at an angle, so the water will flow down through gravity. I'm just going to add it where I feel it's needed, just making sure that there's plenty of pigment. And then, just like with the clear water, I sort of gently drag it over the paper where I feel it needs a bit more water. I go horizontally at the bottom because that's where the water pool is. Now I'm going to spray this slightly with those little spray bottles just to add a bit more water to it and make it run. I've prepared a brown mix made from burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. And now I'm painting the rocks on either side of the waterfall and also a few rocks in the waterfall where the water sort of streams over it. And I make sure that I touch the blue of the water here and there just to lose some of the edges and make it not too separate from the water and connect the shapes. I like working with these Chinese calligraphy brushes because they give me a lot of texture and they also hold a lot of water, so I don't have to go back into my mix too often to get through an area. I've added a bit more pigment to my mix, a bit more blue, a bit more burnt sienna, just to get some darker shades at the bottom of the rocks to indicate, where they overlap and get a bit more depth into my rocks. Now with the tissue I remove a little bit of the water just to fuzz the edges and give the impression of water spray here and there. Now I'm just going to add a few more rocks here and there behind the water just to complete that impression of a waterfall. Now I'm going to add a bit more paint to the actual rock pool at the bottom. First I brush in a little bit of shadow on the actual water spray just to give a bit more texture there, and then I've added a bit of yellow to my ultramarine to give it a bit of a greeny blue watercolor, and then add a bit more ultramarine blue to that mix again just to give a bit more depth to the water at the bottom of the waterfall. And I think it just needs a little bit more depth on those rocks, so I add a bit more of the dark brown mix at the bottom of the rocks. There's a couple of minutes of footage missing here. You can see I've added some green at the top of the waterfall just to hint at some trees and a few more darks here and there. But now, before it's completely dry, I'm scratching in some highlights with a palette knife. You can use your fingernails if they're long enough, or the edge of a credit card. But it's definitely a worthwhile technique to master, just to scratch in some highlights once you've painted something. Now it's completely dry, and as a final step I'll add some white gouache onto a toothbrush and then just spray little splatters all over the painting just to give it a bit more texture. And that's our waterfall sketch finished. Thanks for watching.